Hello everybody and welcome back to a brand new video. It's almost been 2 weeks since I last played RuneScape. It's been a nice break. I had a good vacation, but I'm pretty happy to get back. And man, I sure missed a lot while I was gone. We had our very first hidden poll result, a massive dev blog for warding, a new clue scroll expansion. Next year I should leave during the quality of life month instead. But anyway, we're back and we're going to be going over mostly the new warding dev blog because it is absolutely massive and a little bit controversial. On top of that, we'll be going over a little bit of community news, but pretty much everyone's talking about warding anyway. And there will not be a Q&A recap this week because apparently there was some leaked information on the stream. So they took down the VOD and I wasn't there to watch it. Anyway guys, hope you enjoy and let's get started. Alright, so on April 16th, we had another dev blog released related to warding, and there is a lot of information here. I want to talk about a few things today. First up, do I think warding has a chance of passing, or at least in its current state? Just doing a quick summary over the dev blog. Personally, I would read it myself because, again, very long. And last up, just really any feedback or changes that I personally would make. Okay, so first up, let's have a quick look at some of the new content. So the core concept is pretty much the same from when it was originally pitched at RuneFest. Warding is essentially going to be the equivalent of smithing and crafting, except for magical equipment. Warding will be trained in a few different ways. You can get experience from drawing wards, channeling, and dissolving equipment. Channeling new equipment will be the main way to actually train the skill, where dissolving and drawing wards will only give you a minor amount of experience. They compared it to cleaning herbs for herb lore, a necessary process, but it does not give much experience. Now, there are two basic resources required for warding. We have Viz, which was formerly known as runic energy, and we have fabrics. The fabrics are going to be earned from farming, and the Viz is generated by a channeling lamp when you put runes in it or you dissolve an item. Now, to actually train warding, you'll need to locate a ward, and they're planning on putting these monoliths around RuneScape, which are kind of similar to the runecrafting altars. When you find one, you'll have either the option of channeling and new equipment based on the items in your inventory, or the other option is you can dissolve a piece of equipment into its basic resources. So that is the base of the skill and pretty much what was pitched at RuneFest, and I personally kind of like the general feel of that. Now, some of the criticisms that it received was that it was a bit too basic and that the items that were produced from it were too basic or not useful. So in my opinion, I think Jagex took some of that criticism and developed a bunch of new items. So because of that, we have a bunch of new rewards. First up here, we have some rebalance content, and I pretty much agree with most of this. A lot of the existing magical robes are really weird and not designed for the current meta at all, or really any meta as far as I can tell. First up here, the free-to-play robes that were the unofficial magic robes will now be actually given an appropriate name. So we have the wizard robe top and bottom, or the black wizard robe top and bottom, and they'll also be given a +2 magical attack bonus. We have a change to the shade robes, which are really weird currently. They're obtained from the shade monster, and currently they are kind of a grandfathered in monster from an old random event. You currently get like 1/10 of the experience you normally would from fighting any other monster. So they're fixing that as well as buffing the robes. They are going to be rebalancing the split bark armor, overall giving a +17 bonus. We'll be rebalancing the skeletal armor, giving it a +29 bonus, almost 3 times the amount of magic bonus that I had before. The lunar armor set will be given a substantial buff as well, of +27, and last up here, a pretty controversial piece is the Nightmare Zone imbues getting moved to warding. So one thing to keep in mind here is the Nightmare Zone imbues are getting moved regardless. Honestly, I think the easiest option here is to just change it and don't unimbue anyone's rings and just leave it the way it is. If you had it before, well, whatever, you earned it. Moving forward, you'll have to earn it from warding or wherever they choose to move this content to. Obviously, this isn't 100% fair, but I mean, things change all the time. I'm pretty sure there was like a 6-hour period where you could get a rune scimitar from Obar. So for the accounts that got that, not fair to everyone else. Unfortunately, it's just a part of the game changing. So I think this would probably just be the easiest option. Okay, next up we have the new rewards, and this is kind of where this update started to become cluttered for me. I really like the rebalancing of the old robes. The channeling and dissolving seems kind of cool to me and would actually provide a decent item sync for the game. The problem I currently have with this dev blog is warding feels very combat related based on all of the new items that we are getting. Not to mention that some of these items are actually potentially best in slot items at certain monsters. Okay, first up here for free to play, we actually have a new set of elemental robes, which has been a suggestion for quite a while. Really don't mind this. Giving free to play some content's always pretty nice. especially when they are proposing warding could be potentially a bit free to play. They will definitely need something. So for free to play, we have a ton of new items and also a ton of potentially new mechanics. Take for example the Blood Bark armor set. Beyond its stat bonuses, it also has the following effect. The closer you are to your opponent, the more damage that you deal. There's also a chance of soaking melee damage by 50%. Now that's just an effect on one of the pieces of equipment. We also have increased damage versus aquatic enemies, increased damage versus undead, increased damage versus dragons, and increased damage versus poisonous enemies. And these actually are very good. For example, the Kin Hunter set will give you a plus 15% damage boost versus dragons. There is already a ton of new things here just within these first 7 new armors. Okay, so then we move down here further. We have some new weapons. We have a Mystic Cocktail, which apparently are an alternative to Chinchampas. So I'm assuming they explode like a Chinchampa. However, if they're used against any non-demonic mob, they have considerably reduced accuracy. There's going to be 4 different types of Bane Claws. They will have an increased damage and will autocast specific spells against demon-based monsters. We have Skull Scepter imbues, we have new imbues in general, and the last piece of content here, which is arguably the most controversial of the entire dev blog, the Battle Wards and Conjuring. Battle Wards would provide an area of effect buff if you're standing only 1 tile away. Some of the options here are stuff like pulling enemies towards you, aggroing nearby mobs, area of effect damage, recoiling small amounts of magic damage, and this could affect anyone who is standing next to it. We also have Conjuring, which is, well, to simplify it, kind of like summoning. You could conjure a specific monster to help you battle. I think they'd all just be combat related, so they wouldn't actually have a specific effect, but the highest level thing you could actually conjure would be a Hellhound and an Anku. So just an insane amount of proposed content, and that's not even it. There's still a few new things to farming and Hunter. But I'm just going to leave that up for now because my summary turned into pretty much a full recap. So for a kind of TLDR at the bottom, they have a mock-up of a skill guide. And if you thought that there's already a ton of information, the skill guide even has more things in it. Under the wording section, we have like stuff like Rings of Earth, Rings of Wood, Ring of Amber, Ring of Iron, the Cosmo Amulet. Like, this is just more stuff that has not even really been expanded upon yet. And yeah, so that is the warding design blog. Now, warding is something that I have flip-flopped back and forth between a few times now, but in my honest opinion, I was more excited about it at the RuneFest reveal. Clearly, I knew they were going to be adding in more content after that because it did seem a bit light at the time. But I think due to some critique and other things, they may have overcompensated a little bit. A lot of the rewards are very combat oriented, which I think is a bit strange to come from a skill like warding. Some of the main sticking points for most of the community is stuff like the new magical robes giving a % magic damage boost, which generally is only reserved for some of the highest tier items which have really high requirements to obtain. So for example, the ancestral robe set only gives a +2% on each piece, where the proposed Kin Hunter set would give a +15% from all of its pieces, granted only versus dragons, and it also does degrade, but still, that's a lot of potentially game-changing content just coming from a skill that I really don't think should be that combat focused anyway. Another big issue people have with this is from Battle Wards and Conjuring. Conjuring is definitely just kind of summoning, and Battle Wards just have a ton of different mechanics to it, and I think a lot of this comes down to is a lot of people don't trust Jagex to implement it in an actual realistic and balanced way. There are just way too many ideas here, and I think maybe to a certain extent, the mod team is just kind of throwing a bunch of ideas out there and seeing which ones people like, which if that is their intent, I guess this isn't a terrible way to do it. My only worry is that a lot of people might be scared off of the skill entirely, even if they reel it back in a bit later on. So from the current dev blog, do I think warding will pass? Honestly, no, not based on this. Proposing a perfectly balanced and refined skill would be already a bit of a challenge to get it to pass anyway. However, with controversial pieces of content in it, I really don't think there's any chance. I personally like the idea of a new skill, but I am willing to wait. Okay, so wow, that took a while. Anyway, so on April 18th, we also received a quality of life change. This all seems very minor in comparison now. There was a recolor for the Salve Amulet. The Drayman Staff is no longer an auto-casting weapon. There's also been a quality of life change for birdhouses and Shiloh Village. The Gauntlet and Zalcana will actually have a playtest in the following months. However, you do have to be a UK player, so I will not get it. In other news, the beginner clue drop has been added to a few different monsters. There's a 100% drop chance from Bryophyta and Obor. It's been added to hill giants, ice giants, moss giants, muggers, dwarves, skeletons, and hobgoblins. That's pretty much it for updates this week. Alright, so this week we finally got the result from the very first hidden poll of all time. Now everything did end up passing, but these were kind of givens, so I don't think there was anything controversial or anything that even had a slight chance of not passing. A lot of these things were just quality of life changes, really no huge content changes, but I think they may be trying to get a baseline to see if the voter turnout is higher or if the difference between yes and no votes changes when it's hidden. Again, not a lot of votes, only 56,000 people voted on this poll. I think they will definitely need to try it again with some actual content changes. And last up here, we received another Runelite update. Most of them are changes to incorporate the new clue scroll reward steps, but they have also changed the world map plugin so that all transportation icons will now display what kind of transportation it is. So once again, thank you very much to Runelite. So that is pretty much it for the weekly recap. I am back, so once again, we'll be getting these, well, once a week ideally. A Slayer only Ironman episode will be out pretty soon, along with some updates regarding my farming only account. Look forward to those in the next couple days. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time.